anything on the page. But to me, the idea of just putting words on the page to say I did it that day is not what I'm trying to do as a writer. It's more that works for me when it comes to painting. Like I can say, I'm just going to sit down at this blank canvas and make a little thing of Michael Myers or whatever. But like,
I've seen them. They're great.
Thanks. If you need a little horror movie, guys, let me know. But it's been really good to just have that super different creative outlet that I've never pursued before. And once I did that for a while, then I did sit back down at the keyboard and get some stuff done.
You know, years ago at Bradford, Bob Smart and I taught a course which was meant for writers and artists, where we had the writers solve problems in their writing by drawing, and the artists solve problems in their art by writing. And the interesting thing is that when you have you're a writer, you're not used to painting, so you don't have any preconceptions about it. You can be as open as possible. And that was our goal, to be as open as possible because we don't have preconceptions. So using a different aesthetic or a different creative process can be a great problem solver for you. So I think it's great. And I can eventually see an illustrated book, Bethany.
Yeah.
By you, where you do.
Okay, I'll think about that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Sherry's my agent, which is why she's taking
Hilarious.
notes.
I'm not really an agent, but I'm the one that she's gonna publish a book of stories if it's the only thing I do from the agent side of the world. But I do also want to go back to something you said, and I want to qualify it for both you and Jody and anybody else who's kind of doing that, like, oh my gosh, I should be doing more because I'm at home. No. First of all, anybody who's teaching from home is hero. But seriously, because anybody who's had to move their entire work process to working at home has changed everything about the way you work, and you're doing things are 10 times harder because you have to think of things to be asynchronous and synchronous, and how does it look, and what's my background like, and there are all these other elements that are so deviated from a class plan that's tried and true, or your work gig that's tried and true. And it's crazy, super, super crazy times. And I think it took everybody, a good 3-4 months to figure out this is the now. We're not probably going back to the before, and we don't know what the after looks like. And so please be forgiving and kind to yourselves about that. Whether that's a creative or professional, and particularly academic process, because anything we used to do in a classroom is not going to fly right now. Very little of it. We have to get super, super creative, and so all of our creative juices are going into how do we care for our students who usually come before we do in the first. So, that's be kind, y'all. You're doing major, 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 awesome, wonderful things. So I would just say, be your best use.
Sometimes if you're like me, your best you is watching Netflix.
Yes, I think I've exhausted so much of Netflix. I just want to add.
I know I'm out of TV. I need Rex.
I just want to add that, I was so caught up in the whole process that I forgot to start recording. I did start recording maybe about 10 minutes ago. So why don't you read another story?
Oh, okay.
I don't think anybody's going to be upset about that. And then, once you read that story, there'll be a few more questions. And then I know I have to get back to teaching eventually. So, but this is being recorded, folks.
Okay. Talk amongst yourself. Well, I didn't have a third thing planned, so let me look at what I've got open and just.
I want to wait. I want to request, but I have to get my list.
Okay.
Request.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that everybody's okay with me recording it. If anybody has any issue. Okay. So, and what I will do, Bethany, is once it's like I said, I started maybe about 10 or 15 minutes ago. So both of your first stories were not recorded.
Okay.
I will post it on my YouTube channel, not a public one.
Okay.
and I'll send you the link and you can do whatever you want with it.
Okay. Yeah, I totally meant, because I had some friends who couldn't be here tonight, who asked if we would record it, and then I promptly forgot once we started.
Well,
off.
I forgot too. I know Chris.
We would also like to put it on the Bradford website if possible.
Yeah, I'll send you the link too, Kristen.
And I just want to remind everyone that next Sunday at 6 p.m. is Mark Manheimer from the studio.
Yes.
Hey, so what's our vibe?
Like, do you want something?
wanna be
Don't make me read
you
something
wanna-
sad, because sometimes I'm a dork and I cry at my own writing. So
I know, because that's why I'm looking at this, because you have a lot of certain themes, and I was
I
gonna. I
know,
don't think I want to do that one. I want you to do that one.
and not something too long, because I don't want to bore everyone.
You don't even know which one I was thinking of.
I can get your book and
Hey, what about round and round?
Is that too long?
Oh,
How patient does everyone feel?
you could read something that takes maybe 10 minutes or so.
Okay, let me just see how long that is. I think that's a little bit longer than that.
what about layaway?
What?
Layaway? No, boogeyman.
Okay, let me see.
Halloween.
I don't think that one's too long. It's Halloween themed.
Yes,
Right?
do it.
Okay,
We're
hold
on
on.
holiday. You got the right glass for it tonight.
Everyone who hadn't seen it before, here's my cool glass.
And if
Okay, and
everybody would
this
please
is what's-
mute their microphones, please.
This is
Okay,
the-
just gotta pull it up.
Coming.
Thanks for your patience, lovely people.
We love you.
I just looked to see if my family was still there. Let's see. Boogeyman.
Your mom's still there. Your dad's in the room.
I
I
am
didn't know Jen had to go home.
There's
just
Jenny.
letting you know, folks, I'm going to mute everybody.
Okay. All right. This one might be slightly longer, but I'll read it a little quicker clip, maybe, if that is helpful for people. Okay. This is called The Boogeyman, and I am the type of person who publishes herself in her literary magazine. So this appeared in the 3rd issue of Bluff and Vine, which you can get on Amazon. Okay. The Boogeyman. Nicky doesn't care that I hate Halloween. When I beg him, actually get down on my actual knees on the actual kitchen floor, which needs mopping big time, in the middle of breakfast, and clasp my hands together in what I am pretty confident is a close approximation of a prayer, to stay home and help me hand out candy, to go out to eat anywhere he wants, even Ponderosa, to do anything but make me take him to Hutton Street. He presses his lips together and shakes his head left and right and left again, slow and final. When I tell him I'll give him $20 if he finds a friend to go with, he puts his little fists on his hips and cocks his head. I've always been a disappointment. I rock back on my heels and give him the eyeball as he finishes his cereal, rinses the bowl and puts it in the dishwasher, and walks down the hall to the bathroom to brush his teeth. I'm still on the floor, partly because I'm not totally sure I can get back up without throwing out my back. And when he picks up his backpack and zips his lunch bag inside, hand on the doorknob, he says over his shoulder, "It's not a real haunted house, Mom." "Thanks, kiddo," I call after him. After he leaves, I manage to get up and I pour myself a second cup of coffee and drink it standing over the sink. Despite what the calendar says, it looks like summer. The grass in the yard is still green, the sun's bright and the sky's blue, and Mrs. Care next door has her door wide open. But she also has about 30 pumpkins and gourds and squash scattered across her porch, and even more tissue paper ghosts hanging from the branches of the flowering cherry by the driveway. Everyone just loves Halloween. I let Nicky choose one decoration at the drugstore. He picked a hinged skeleton wearing a top hat, taller than both of us. We hung it on the door going down to the basement, limbs akimbo. And every morning when I stumble out to the kitchen, I have to bite my lip not to scream, because I swear it's some monster come to kill us both, but a gentleman monster who dressed for the occasion. I give old Skelly a pat on the top hat as I walk out the door. The bank is strewn with orange and black streamers, like Halloween is some kind of evil prom, which sounds about right when you think about it. Behind the counter, Jill Jensen has a huge orange wig, a red rubber nose, and an oversized polka dot jumpsuit. When she hands me the deposit slip and the empty cash bag, she nudges the candy bowl. "Take one," she says. Calories don't count on Halloween. Jill's been fretting about what she puts in her mouth since junior high. Insert your own joke here. I take a Milky Way. They're little, Jill says. Take 2. I cut down Water Street, leaves skittering ahead of me on the sidewalk. It's very picturesque. If it wasn't for Halloween, fall would be my favorite season. As it is, I'll take winter. Sure, the snow and cold wear a person down after the 4th or 5th month, but there's something lovely about getting socked in at home, snug on the couch with a pile of books from the library, Nicky at the kitchen table scratching away in one of his sketchbooks, Grandma Sorensen's beef stew bubbling on the stove, nowhere to go and no way to get there even if we wanted to. I passed the coffee shop and the line of girls with matching high ponytails wearing unnecessary knee-high boots queued up inside. It's almost 70 degrees out, but a girl needs her pumpkin spice. Across the street, the new kid hauls snowblowers out onto the sidewalk in front of Pinckney's. I cross Elm Street just before the light turns, and then I'm standing in front of Long's, looking at the wall where they hang all the posters. A bright hand-lettered sign announces "Return of the Haunted House on Hutton Street" and "One night only." I peek into the bookstore and my throat gets tight. It's been almost 15 years, but my hands start to shake like they did when Heidi and I pulled open the heavy door and stepped inside, the pockets of our dorky matching jean jackets stuffed with every dollar we had. It was hard to spend a whole year passing up hot pink shoelaces, double scoops of mint chocolate chip, and a fistful of ride tickets at the Fireman's Carnival. But then October came and we spilled our piggy banks onto Heidi's strawberry shortcake bedspread and hugged each other as hard as we could, giggling over the Halloween treasures waiting for us at the Boo Bazaar. We trick-or-treated until we were, in the words of Heidi's dad, a foot too tall for it. Sure, we probably should have been downtown chasing our classmates with cans of shaving cream, but we loved putting together elaborate costumes and going door to door, coming home with bags bursting with peanut butter cups and Twizzlers. In 7th grade, we decided we really were too big. Well, old really. But then at the last minute, we snuck white bed sheets out of Heidi's grandma's linen closet and cut eye holes to go as ghosts. Heidi took a big chunk out of my bangs, since we decided it was best to cut the eye holes while we were wearing the sheets, and I cried for a solid hour. Still went out for candy though. The next year, Heidi got a boyfriend, and Halloween was the last thing on her mind, or the second to last thing after me. The Boo Bazaar went away that fall too. A couple of days before Halloween, I dragged the toad out of my closet and picked through my treasures until I found the perfect decoration to hang over my bed. An old plastic Frankenstein mask, slits for eyes, and 2 tiny nose holes, the kind that let in just enough air to keep the person wearing it from mostly alive. A stretchy string stapled to the sides, the green face faded and cracked. Halloween came and went, and I left the mask up. Then Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. I thought about taking it down for Valentine's Day, but by then Frank's lopsided scowl and slack jaw had become a friend. I won't say I talked to him before I fell asleep every night, that I told him about my B in bio and how Maddie Johnson laughed when I asked him to the dance and how I only got a part in the chorus in Guys and Dolls. But I won't say I didn't either. Frank was still tacked to the wall the summer after my senior year, the summer I met Reed Kennedy, the rubber band brittle but hanging on. The first time I showed Reed my room, he took the mask down and tried to put it on, and the rubber band crumbled in his hand. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept looking up at the dark circle of paint where Frank had hung, and I thought for the first time in a long time about dressing up with Heidi when we were kids, painting dribbles of blood on each other's cheeks, laughing until our stomachs hurt at the way the glow-in-the-dark fangs made us talk funny. I didn't want to cry, so I turned out the light and rolled over with the covers over my head, but I felt a strange ache in my chest that kept me awake for a long time that night. I do a couple of those over-the-shoulder looks that people do in movies that make a person look super guilty when they're trying to be all spy-like and sneaky, and then I rip the Hutton Street flyer off the wall in front of Long's. I stuff it in my purse, the only sign of my vandalism, the 4 ragged orange corners left behind under the Scotch tape, and then I book it down the street to the Nest Egg. Heather's behind the register. The shop is empty, but it's early. It's a beautiful day, and it's Friday. Things will pick up after lunch. I hand Heather the cash bag and bank receipt and 2 mini Milky Ways. She pops one in her mouth. Heather opens the shop while I'm getting Nikki ready for school. She has a husband at home to help with her kids and running errands like the bank. And then she heads off to do whatever she does when she's not at her store. There are never 2 of us on at once unless it's between Memorial Day and Labor Day or Christmas. There's a new box of scarves in the office, she says, propping open the front door on her way out. The air that comes in feels like summer, but smells like fall. They can go on the rack by the candles. Sure thing, I say. The nest egg is the best job I've ever had. It's the only job where I haven't gotten groped, grabbed, pinched, or propositioned. At my first after graduation job, working the produce stand at the Echo Fruit Farm, I learned quick to be on my guard when the rich lake dads stopped by after 18 holes at Lakeside, white leather gloves flapping from their back pockets and breath thick with beer. The ones who asked if they could give me a squeeze to see if I was ripe or if that just applied to the cantaloupe. I'll finish up the window too, I say to Heather. Halloween isn't over yet, but she asked me yesterday to start turning the display over for Thanksgiving. I whisper a little thank you for every mummy I get to replace with a cornucopia, every ceramic jack-o'-lantern I get to wrap in last week's Chronicle and put in storage for another year. I've only got a few more ghosts and goblins to put away today. Great, says Heather. Give me a call if you need anything. I lean on the door frame as she walks out to her car, parked in front of the shop. A chain of costumed kids from the daycare at the Methodist church pass between us on the sidewalk. Princess, Doctor, Spider-Man, Raggedy Ann, a tiny werewolf trailing behind. I admit they're pretty cute. A panting woman wearing bunny ears brings up the rear, carrying lost bits of costumes and calling out to the kids at the front of the line to slow down, which just makes them go faster. See you at Hutton Street tonight, Heather asks. Maybe, I say, which translates to not if I can help it. It's the place to be. Apparently. I always think you're kidding about hating Halloween. I raise an eyebrow. Heather laughs and drives away, windows down. I realize too late I could have asked her to take Nikki with her and her boys. I haven't thought about the Echo Fruit Farm in years, but after my shift is done, I drive to the little gravel lot on East Lake Road just before the speed limit turns to 55. The old maple tree is still there, its leaves yellow as the sun. I park under it, facing the little slice of lake I can see just beyond the new hotel. The stand was a great summer job. I worked my way through the summer reading list for AP English that my brother Matt brought home. I pretended not to care about school when I was in it, but I was really a secret learning nerd. I wove a bag full of friendship bracelets out of orange and blue embroidery floss for the Sports Booster craft sale, and even put a lawn chair out back and worked on my tan. Every once in a while, I'd hear tires crunch out front and I'd sell overpriced produce to summer people in their top-down convertibles. It paid enough to keep me in lip gloss and 17 magazine and let me put a few dollars away for whatever was going to happen now that I'd graduated. The fact that I didn't know what that was yet and was selling produce for a living was the second most argued topic at the dinner table that summer, second only to my brother's Motley Crue tattoo. It's been almost 11 years, but I can still picture Reed slamming the door of his hand-me-down Mercedes and crossing the parking lot in 3 easy strides, a handwritten list from his mom crumpled in his fist. I can't remember what I had for dinner last night or the name of the author of the book I just finished, but I can tell you I just finished The Great Gatsby, author F. Scott Fitzgerald, the day Reed walked into my life. I can tell you it was an overcast, muggy day. I can tell you that Reed's t-shirt was green, his swim trunks were blue and yellow striped, and his backwards baseball cap said South Carolina Gamecocks on it. The Lake boys didn't pay attention to girls like me, chubby, usually grumpy, always smarter than them. But Reed did. He talked to me about The Great Gatsby for so long, his brother finally rolled up in his new Mercedes and asked him where the hell was the peach pie, not to mention mom was waiting on the blueberries and sweet corn. A cop drives into the parking lot while I'm reminiscing, pulls up right next to my window and makes a little roll it down gesture, like cars have cranks anymore. He asks me what I'm doing and I make up a story about meeting a friend and he says to do it somewhere else. This is private property. I think about telling him I'm a former employee, but who knows if the Echo Fruit Farm still owns the lot or ever did. I should go home and mop the floor or something, but instead I cruise through town and out past Seneca Farms where Reed and I went on our first date. I end up at the scenic overlook down by Branchport where Reed and I took our ice cream, his butter pecan, mine maple walnut, and had our first kiss. Okay, yes, it was my first kiss ever, and it was nice. We sat on the hood of his car, the bluff shrouded by low-hanging clouds, shared our sugar cones, and Reed recited his favorite poem. I can't remember what it was, but I know he was the first boy I'd ever met who had a favorite poem. Probably the only one now that I think about it. It's amazing the things your brain holds on to. I remember the metal of the car warm against my bare legs, the rustle of the long grass at the edge of the parking lot, the heavy feel of the humid night air, the smell of Reed close and warm beside me, citrus and sweat, the ghost of an expensive cologne I'd probably never heard of and definitely couldn't afford. The trees at the overlook have grown enough that you can't see the bluff even on a clear day. So I head back to town again, done with my driving tour of My Great Summer Romance. Stay tuned for the sequel, My Great Autumn Tragedy. There's still a little time before Nikki gets home from school, so I go up to the cider mill to grab a few treats. I've got 2 cinnamon sugar donuts and a gallon of cider. Maybe I'll stop and grab a pepperoni pizza and hot wings from Cam's, offer Nikki his choice of movie. I'll even let him watch something with Freddie or Jason or Michael Myers in it. That might finally convince him to skip Hutton Street and stay home. Can you imagine hiding from your kid that Halloween is a thing? It wasn't too bad when he was little. No decorations at our house and no porch light on to draw the trick-or-treaters. Of course, I didn't think about school. The bus door was still wheezing to a close when 4-year-old Nicky leaped into my arms, sobbing so hard he couldn't talk. After a grape popsicle and a long back rub, he managed to hiccup the horrible truth. There was a magical holiday of costumes and chocolate, and everybody knew about it but him. Mom of the year, right? So I agreed to hand out candy, but drew the line at going out. Nicky wore a plastic fireman's hat when he answered the door, yelling trick or treat over and over at the little kids as he scooped handfuls of Smarties and Nerds into their plastic pumpkins. The next year I sent him to his Uncle Matt's, and it became a tradition for Nicky to trick or treat with his cousins. Matt even took him costume shopping, handing me receipts for plastic handcuffs and satin capes and cowboy hats. Then Matt got the job in Milwaukee, and Nicky came home from 4th grade with a bright orange flyer that he carefully unfolded and smoothed out on the kitchen table. It might as well have said, Revenge of the Haunted House on Hutton Street. I got a full-time job working at the daycare on Hutton Street in the fall after the Echo Fruit Farm stand closed up for the winter, teaching sticky-fingered boys and girls how to paper mache and make God's eye crosses out of yarn and popsicle sticks until their parents came to pick them up. Miracle of miracles, I'd snagged a Lake boy who didn't leave after Labor Day. Reed was enrolled at Bethany College, just 4 short miles out of town. Every time he walked in the door or I heard his voice on the other end of the telephone line, I had to pinch myself to believe he was real. We spent the rest of that summer, when I wasn't selling overripe tomatoes and early Concord grapes to sunburned and impatient tourists, at Reed's family's cottage. I learned to water ski, helped Reed's mom make pasta salad for dinner, and learned how to appreciate Chardonnay too, lounged on rafts with Reed while we read dead poets. I don't know how many nights I fell asleep with my hair full of wood smoke and fingers sticky from roasting marshmallows over the fire. I'd spent plenty of days at the lake before, in musty cottages rented by friends' parents, where it didn't matter where or how much sand we tracked in, but I'd never been to a place like the one Reed's parents owned. The whole lake-facing side was windows, peaked at the top, and at the end of the dock, a pontoon boat and 2 shiny jet skis were parked. On mornings when I had off from Echo, we'd take canoes out to the middle of the lake and watch the sun come up, steam rising off the water. One night, we took the Land Rover over to the airport and picked up a styrofoam cooler full of crabs Reed's father had flown in from Maryland. It was my first time having crabs, insert joke here. Smashing them with a little wooden hammer was my favorite part. And after school started, Reed met me at Hamilton Street on evenings when he didn't have class or practice, helping me clean up glitter and glue and piling bright yellow safety scissors in a cardboard box. I knew how to show a guy a good time, you bet. I looked down at my lap. The waxy white bag is empty and I've got cinnamon sugar dust all down the front of my shirt. I crumple the bag and tuck it into the side door pocket where Nicky won't see it, and then crack open the tart cider and drink straight from the jug, my eyes watering. I swipe at my mouth with the back of my hand and then sit, the open jug still in my hand, and watch the sunlight dapple the drying corn in the field across the road for a long time. Then I pour the rest of the cider into the gravel and drive home. I take a shower while Nicky's eating dinner, mostly because I don't want to listen to him talk about how excited he is about the haunted house. Of course, I gave in. As much as I don't want to go to Hutton Street, I can't say no to Nicky's big hazel eyes or his constant badgering. For years, the daycare's biggest fundraiser was their annual haunted house. I was so excited to help build it that fall. I dug the plastic tote out from the back of my closet and donated the whole of my Boo Bazaar to the cause. I loved hanging bats from fishing wire, spinning spider webs like creepy cotton candy, painting an elaborate cemetery filled with the graves of the town's favorite deceased citizens and a few who I wished were deceased. The night before Halloween, I stayed extra late, putting the finishing touches on the haunted windmill scene in the middle of the maze, making moon craters with glow-in-the-dark paint. Reed was there watching me, working his way through a 6-pack of Zima. I remember he said, "I've never known an adult who loves Halloween as much as you." And I said, "I'm an adult, huh?" And then he said, "No one else in this haunted house?" And I said, "Just us and the ghouls." We went up to the second floor and found a room full of forgotten boxes, an old plaid couch, and spider webs, real ones. Reed told me he loved me, and I believed a man for the first and last time in my life and said it back. The couch squeaked so loud we both laughed. I remember his face, his dark eyes squeezed shut, the dust-smudged window, and the blurry white scoop of the half moon. I remember gripping his shoulder with my fingers, how they glowed in the dark. "Come on, Mom, let's go." I looked down at my hands on the steering wheel and then at Nicky. He's hard to see in the dark, what with the all-black ninja costume. We have to park way down on Henry Street, almost to Ogden. It's still warm, but some kids have jackets over their costumes because the temperature is supposed to drop after dark. Nicky's outfit has long sleeves and pant legs, so he's already too hot by the time we get to the intersection with Hutton Street. I look up at the square brick building with the green double doors, and the asphalt under me turns to cement, locking my feet in place. Grief threatens to suffocate me like a cheap Frankenstein mask. See what I did there? I reach for my throat, still warm from the slug of vodka I snuck before we got in the car. I'm lucky Nicky hasn't found the bottle tucked behind the fish sticks and tater tots. He wouldn't drink any himself, but he would lecture me for sure. "Mom," Nicky says in that long-suffering voice he uses when I'm trying his patience more than usual, "what are you doing?" Nicky started asking about his dad when he was 3. I tried telling him that he didn't have a dad, but he was too smart for that. You can't tell a toddler that you got pregnant the first time you had sex, that you found out just before Christmas, and when you told his dad, over the phone because he was back in Boston for the holiday break, he hung up on you. You can't tell your kid that when the spring semester started, you got your brother to drive you out to campus, and when the roommate answered your furious knocks, Reed's half of the room was as empty as if he'd never existed. So you tell your sweet son that his dad was someone you loved very much, but it didn't work out, and there's no one to blame. These things happen. And your kid, who is stronger and braver at 3 than you will ever be, will reach across the kitchen table and squeeze your hand with his little fingers. I look at that boy, now nearly as tall as me, and I shake my head. I don't like Halloween. You know that, kiddo. "I'm going in," Nicky says, and lifts his chin to let me know he means business. Of course. I stick my fists deep in my pockets. "I'll wait here." "I don't want to go in alone," Nicky says. We stand facing each other on the sidewalk, a standoff. People stream around us, laughing and gibbering. I see Heidi and her lookalike daughter, both in costume. I wonder if she still has her Boo Bazaar tucked away somewhere, up in the attic with the cluster flies and cobwebs. I don't miss mine. Nicky's the best Halloween treasure I ever got. Finally, I say, "You're the bravest kid I know. It's a bunch of painted cardboard and teenagers in rubber masks. You can do it." Nicky reaches behind his head and very slowly and without breaking eye contact, tightens the knot on his ninja mask. Then he nods once and begins to climb the wide concrete steps. When he gets to the top, he turns and looks back at me. I wave. "You came." It's Heather, her 3 boys in tow. The middle one is dressed like a ninja too, all black, and twirls a pair of nunchucks just like Nicky's. Even in the growing dusk, I see Nicky's eyes light up. "Not going in?" Heather asks. I shake my head, my lips in a tight line. "Nick can come with us." She squeezes my shoulder, and I have a fierce urge to hug her. "See you on the other side." I mailed a photo to Reed's parents' address when the baby was born, his name printed carefully on the back, Nicholas Fitzgerald Kennedy. I waited for the phone to ring, but it didn't. I sent letters every month, pictures tucked carefully inside. I waited for a reply, for a knock on my parents' door, but none came. Just before Nicky turned 1, a letter came back to me marked "Return to Sender." I got Nicky's last name officially changed to match mine. I wait on the sidewalk until the crowd thins. The long windows at the front of the building are blocked out for the haunted house, but purple and red flashing lights spill around the edges. I listen to the faint howl of a werewolf, creaking chains, the roar of a recorded chainsaw. Who thinks this is appropriate for kids? Their screams tumble out the open door, and my arms break out in goosebumps when I realize I can't tell if they're screaming with fear or joy or both. I wander out of the circle of lamplight and down the grassy slope to the little playground. 3 swings with cracked plastic seats, a rusted teeter-totter, and a metal merry-go-round. I try swinging, but the thick chains dig into my also thick hips. I can't teeter-totter on my own, so I put my hand around one of the bars of the merry-go-round and give it a little push. It screeches at first, but when I start walking around it, it quiets to a low squeal, like fingernails down a chalkboard, but one classroom over. I start to run around and around. I'm panting pretty much immediately. And when the wheel really gets going, I pull hard and leap off the ground like I'm not a fat, clumsy, nearly 30 mom with bad knees. I expect the merry-go-round to grind to a halt under my weight, but it keeps spinning. So I lay back, the metal against my back, still warm from the day's sun. Overhead, the thin scrum of clouds and the harvest moon swirl wildly, and I laugh. When the merry-go-round finally slows, I get up and do it all over again, run until my breath is hot and ragged in my chest, yank myself off the ground like someone who defies gravity on a regular basis, and slide to the bumpy floor, my stomach cramping with laughter. When the side door of the building bangs open, I sit up, smacking my forehead hard on one of the curved bars. This makes me laugh even harder, and the giggles turn to hiccups as the merry-go-round slows to a stop. 2 teenagers huddle in the dark by the chain-link fence at the back of the property. Fire blooms as one lights a cigarette. They pass it back and forth, a red ember in the growing dark, their heads close so their shadows bleed together. I bet they're in love, or think they are, and sneaking out of work to share a smoke is the most dangerous thing they've done. Then the skunky smell of weed wafts over to me. Okay, so a little dangerous. I step off the merry-go-round like a big shot, and my wobbly legs give out immediately and spill me onto the ground. Gravel bites into my palms like I'm 6, and I trip over the kickball. From the fence, I hear the teenagers snicker. Mom? Nikki's there, ninja mask pulled off so I can see his flushed cheeks and bright eyes. I'm still too dizzy to stand, but I get to my knees. I'm eye to eye with my clever, serious son, and I can't remember the last time he smiled like this, wide and wild, and then we're hugging, squeezing each other tight. Nikki feels small and fragile in my arms, but solid too, like something that will hold me up. He whispers, "You can do it, Mom. I'll hold your hand next time and you won't be scared." And then pulls away, calling his friend's name, and soon he's just another shadow in the black. Thanks, kiddo, I call after him. The wind picks up, sharp and biting suddenly, carrying the scent of burning leaves. I stand, swaying in the dark. I look up at the sky, and I can't tell if I'm crying with fear or joy or both.
Fabulous, just fabulous, really.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. I know it ended up kind of long.
That's okay. It was worth it.
Thank you.
You can unmute, folks, if you want to.
Beth, I
I'm
couldn't
gonna
help
have
but
to,
think of,
yeah, I'm gonna have to stop this like in a couple of minutes because there's stuff I need to do, but
What did you say,
I
Joe?
just want to add my accolades. You're so talented. We're so grateful for you to kick off this series. And I feel like my whole week has been lifted up from your voice. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Kristen.
Really amazing.
Thank you.
I agree. It was
I
wonderful.
just want to say thanks for including me.
Oh my gosh, I was so glad you could be here. It didn't have to be just Bradford people.
This is open to anybody.
Right.
Happy to be here for you.
I will be watching your feed for the next time we can do this.
Okay. I'm so glad you could be here, everybody. Mary Beth, I don't know if we can make it a weekly thing. Maybe I could just call you and read you a story.
Mark, thanks for hosting.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
my
thank you
pleasure.
so much, Mark.
It's my pleasure. And
Yeah, we're really grateful, Mark, because otherwise it would have just been 40 minutes. So we definitely needed more time tonight.
if any of you can make it next Sunday, I will be showing you
Yeah,
around.
just send me an email to Bradford Alumni 1803@gmail.com and I'll sign you up and then I'll send the email list to Mark.
Thank you so much for including me in this and for everyone for showing up and listening to me talk for an hour and a half or whatever.
Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful talent with us. It's really, really a joy. Really is.
Thanks so much, Mark. I appreciate it.
Mrs. Snyder, what a talented daughter you have.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I was going to tell Jody that she was really not the very first person to,
That's
get to
true.
hear her story.
Fully acknowledge that you definitely came before I did.
Yeah, that I did. She's been writing for a very, very long time, and we're just thrilled with how beautifully she's done with her writing and
I
how far
agree.
she's come with it. So,
If anyone wants to call me next Sunday and tell me they like my writing, I'll listen.
okay.
I'm going to click off because it's now 1:30 in the morning. So thank you all.
Thanks for staying up, Kristen.
Okay.
I'm
Appreciate
gonna,
it.
and
Bye,
I'm gonna
everybody.
end this.
See you all next week, hopefully.
So,
right.
Kristen, I'll see you, everyone. And Bethany, thank you so much. So I'm gonna stop this now, folks. And
Okay, thank you.
send
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
I will send you the link.
Okay, thank you.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Well,
Good night.
Stay safe, please.
Night.
Yes.
and vote.